Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Tuesday as we look at the first storm system that's coming into the Northeast and moving steadily northeastward. And then behind it, we have the next storm system that's getting ready to come out of the Rockies and into the Central Plains, and a little bit of dry air in the middle, which will make for a nice Wednesday at least. We had a surge of rain go through overnight and this morning, and that's moved out, but there's still a couple of spokes here around this upper air feature that's moving across Lake Erie and heading into southeastern Canada. So I think there probably will be a couple of more downpours to work through, maybe even the chance of an isolated thunderstorm. Now, out in the west, you can see what's happening here as, let me just make sure that's the latest loop, and it is. Here we go. So here we have our system now in the Rockies. This is the next one that's going to be a pretty intense storm when it's all said and done in terms of how it develops on the surface. Meanwhile, up here in the Pacific, off the Pacific Northwest coast, you can see there's a pretty strong storm system moving eastward, parallel to the Washington coast. Now, where it winds up remains to be seen, but we're going to take a look at that when we get to the weather model. So you can get a flavor for what's going on. There's moisture moving into the Northwest and into California. This system right now in Colorado looks to be doing quite well in terms of precipitation. So let's see if we can verify that on the radar. Here's the radar in the Northeast as that first band of rain is now moving up into toward eastern New England. And you've got these bands out to the west that'll come in later today. You've got some precipitation, rain showers in the Great Lakes. And we also have some strong thunderstorm activity, possibly maybe even some severe weather across northern Florida. And as we head out to the west, which I'll be able to slide over for you in 1 second. All right, so as we go west, so here's our system producing some rain and downpours in Kansas, and I venture to say some snows in parts of Colorado and on up into Wyoming. Not too much going on in California today. And here's the lead moisture coming into the Pacific Northwest with that storm that is offshore. So, this busy pattern just continues. And we're going to take a look at a couple of models. First, in the shortest to short range would be the HRRR model. And as those little spokes rotate through, you can see how the model kind of brings them in during the afternoon and evening hours, but not everybody's going to see those. The bulk of the rain is done with, and then weather conditions will improve after that. So at this point, I think we can probably go to a wider view. I think the overall theme going forward, by the way, is after this next storm system for Thursday, it looks like we're going to have a little bit of a break from these storms every 2 or 3 days here in the Northeast. And I think it may lead to let's call it a sustained warm-up of about 2 or 3 days of temperatures running actually above average. So here's our next storm. You can see it coming out through Missouri. And this is going to really strengthen in terms of pressure. And it actually does, at least from the standpoint of the GFS and even the NAM and the European to some degree, want to create some snow out of this on the northwest side over parts of Michigan. I'm venture to say there'll be places, if that happens, that wind up getting more snow from this than they got anytime during the winter months in any one particular event. And that low makes its way into central Pennsylvania. It's actually fairly deep, and the European and the GFS model will have the same idea here. I think it sets up for a round of severe weather possibilities in the area from right in here, probably from coastal North Carolina, coastal Virginia, up into central New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania. With that deep of a low there, I would not at all be surprised. Also, I think it sets up for a windswept soaking rain for areas from New York City north and east with that strong southeast flow. This is going to be another 1 to 2 inch rain producer. Now, the upper air system with this does not get out of the way fast, so we're still going to have some lingering clouds and showers here on Friday, and even some lingering snows possible back through parts of Ohio and Michigan. Of course, the time of year would probably mean, there'll be accumulation to be mostly on colder surfaces. Meanwhile, Going into the end of the week, I just want to point out that there's a very deep storm that's approaching the Pacific Northwest coast. That pressure is pretty low, and there are probably going to be some very strong winds coming into Oregon, Northern California, into the Washington coast here on Friday, along with some heavy rains and heavy snows in northern and central California on northward. So that looks like a pretty potent system that's coming in there into the west. And eventually that snow spreads up into Idaho, Nevada, western Oregon, and into parts of western Wyoming. Meanwhile, in the east, as this storm pulls out, we're going to get into that warm-up that I mentioned. And I'll show you on the upper air how that plays out. We'll switch over to that in just a second. But after this storm for the end of the week, it looks like the weather systems get kind of weak for a little while, and there'll be some more opportunities for rain. But I think the pattern looks like it wants to relax a little bit. So we'll see how that plays out in the longer term. So I'll just show you on the upper air map what's happening. And I think it makes total sense, by the way, with regards to the overall pattern. So I'm just going to back it up. It behaves itself. Okay, so here's our next system for Friday. You'll notice a couple of things here. First off, we've got higher than normal pressures up to the north. It's not the most perfect blocking scenario, but it is creating blocking, and it is continuing to suppress the jet stream further south. It also, with respect to this system here in the east, it's a pretty intense feature. So the models don't rush it out of the way. This time of year, things really start to slow down in terms of moving from west to east. They don't fly like rocket ships like they do sometimes in the winter. So it can take a couple of days for weather systems to get out of the way, and that makes it very slow to clear out. Now, over time, what happens is, that system opens up and weakens. So you've got this trough into the western part of the United States, and in response to that, you're going to get a ridge to build here in the east. The flow in Canada, at least temporarily, becomes separated from all that, and that allows the ridge to come up. This is for Sunday night. So this points to a sustained period of warm weather for the eastern part of the United States for early next week. When I say sustained, I mean 2 or 3 days worth, because after that, you're going to see the jet stream drops further south. You've got a weather system into the Great Lakes later next week. You still have this flow from the Pacific. You got a little bit of action up in Canada, but the ridge will disappear after a couple of days. But the upper air pattern overall, to me, doesn't quite look as dynamic going past, say, April 15th. Looks a little more relaxed. And by the way, notice that as each one of these systems pulls out, here we are for Tuesday, April 18th. Now, granted, I know this is sort of fantasy land, but if this idea is correct, where you start to get that trough back in the west and the ridge in the eastern part of the United States with no real blocking no real blocking in the atmosphere to make for a colder look, this would suggest that we could be perhaps headed into some warmer than average temperatures for the second half of the month of April, as compared to March and the first half of the month of April. So we're going to be watching this. So this is a warmer look toward the end of the 2-week period, with a trough in the west and basically a ridge in the eastern part of the United States. There is some semblance of a block that tries to develop over time, but whether that creates another situation of a deep trough in the east or not remains to be seen. I'm exaggerating there with that arrow so far south, but the bottom line is that the models do look like they want to go a little bit warmer than average for the second half of the month of April, as opposed to the first. But you know what? That's the last couple of runs. Who knows what today's runs will bring with it. So we'll continue to watch the storms, as the storm systems, particularly this one, the second one here, I think is going to be important. And if I had the Storm Prediction Center, by the way, and this is for Thursday, I just want to show you that for Thursday at least, it has a marginal risk of severe weather up into north central New Jersey, with a slight risk from southern New Jersey down through Maryland, Delaware, into Virginia and North Carolina, with actual area of enhanced risk in eastern Virginia and northeastern North Carolina. So this is going to be something we're going to watch pretty closely, and we'll keep you updated on all of this on meteorologistjoechafee.com. And Angry Ben has all the New York City goings on with regards to the weather going forward on nycweathernow.com. And thank you for being on my YouTube channel. If you're new, welcome. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel by just hitting the subscribe button on the channel page. It's absolutely free, and you'll be notified anytime there's a new video that comes up. So everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday.